Jay Gabler, Duluth News Tribune arts and entertainment reporter, here with another special episode of the DNT Minute featuring my column, Front Row Seat. This week, I write about a trip I made up to beautiful Chisholm, Minnesota, for my first ever visit to the St. Louis County Fair. Everyone was talking about the weather. Not the weather August 1st when I visited the St. Louis County Fair, but what had happened the day before. "We had a humdinger of a storm last night," said the woman who waved me into a parking spot. "This thing was shaking back and forth," said Donna Goomeringer, leaning out the window of the Walleye Bite Company trailer. "A humdinger," affirmed Dave Caponoli, stirring a fresh batch of product at Cappy's Kettle Corn. He pulled out his phone to show a video of brown dirt clouds whipping up across the fairgrounds. It was definitely flinging around. Ray Erspalmer, president of the fair, laughed as he rocked back and forth to demonstrate the way the main office trailer was rocked by high winds during the storm, which also brought a slightly premature end to a Canadian Forces Snowbirds aerobatics demonstration over Duluth. Despite all the drama, at the end of the day, there was very little damage at the fairgrounds, said Erspalmer. "There's a few canopies that got wrecked. They're kind of flimsy things anyway." It was another memorable day in the 140-year history of the fair, which started in Duluth in 1884. It moved to the Pool location near Hibbing in 1906, then to Hibbing itself in 1925, and ultimately to Chisholm in 1999. It was very controversial because the Hibbing Fair had been there for years and years and years, said Ed Nelson, a former board member, sitting in the horse barn on August 1st. The Hibbing site had been shrinking, though, due to the expansion of surrounding educational and civic facilities. With support from the Iron Range Resources and Rehabilitation Board and the institution now known as the Minnesota Discovery Center, the fair moved to reclaimed mine land in Chisholm. Land isn't all the fair is reclaiming. A building that formerly welcomed visitors at the Hallrust Mine View, since replaced by a newer facility there, has been moved to the fairgrounds and is being renovated to serve as the St. Louis County Fair office. "It's all made of metal," said Erspalmer. "We're going to go through and make sure that it's insulated." The mineral-rich ground that makes the Northland so great for mining also presents a challenge for farming. "Our topsoil is less than an inch," Erspalmer explained. "South of the cities, you have a foot to 2 feet of topsoil. That means it's unlikely state champion crops will come from St. Louis County. Nonetheless, this county is simply so large that it needs 4 separate county fairs. In addition to the Iron Range Fair, there's also the South St. Louis County Fair in Proctor, the Southwest St. Louis County Fair in Floodwood, and the Central St. Louis County Fair in Meadowlands." In quintessential Minnesota fashion, Erspalmer resisted the invitation to toot his own fair's horn when asked to compare the Chisholm Fair to the others. "Most county fairs are pretty much the same," he said, but allowed that we're a little bigger than some of the other ones. Diane Gordon has been coming to the St. Louis County Fair for probably 30 years, she estimates, selling a product that's been around even longer. "I got into Tupperware because I wanted my pantry organized," said Gordon, standing in front of a large display of reusable plastic containers. "Then, after I started selling and realized I was making money at it, I might as well stay. It's been the best career." Gordon's display had plenty of containers and shapes I recognized from my 80s childhood, as well as a few new inventions. "Look, there's even a QR code," said Gordon, pointing at the side of one of the Fridge Smart produce containers. Across the merchandise area from the Tupperware tables, Kathy Morris and her daughter, Melissa Robbins, were selling handcrafted items representing the 2 middle generations of a 4-generation family business. "We're the 4 crazy crafters," said Robbins. "That's my grandma, my mom, me, and my daughter." Robbins lives in Chisholm and Morris lives in Hibbing. She said, "We go to any craft fair that is north of Duluth. The women use their earnings for vacations and garage sale splurges, but," Robbins said, "we don't care if we make money or not. It's the camaraderie that you have with all the other crafters and all the other people. There's a similar camaraderie among the people who enter competitions at the fair, but there's also something at stake. Tyler Nash, age 17, had already learned he was advancing to the Minnesota State Fair poultry competition. "I've been there twice so far for poultry," said Nash. "I've gotten red awards the last 2 years I've gone, which isn't awful, but this year I'm hoping for blues." Beretta Semler doesn't bother with the state fair. "We don't have our own class down there," said Semler, whose family raises Scottish Highland cattle at their farm in Jacobson. "The judges usually don't really know what they're looking at. Highland cattle do get their own class at the county fair, but as you might expect, there's not a lot of competition. We usually are competing against ourselves," said Semler. "Well, the family does attend a Scottish-only show in Austin, Minnesota. That's where you get really competitive," she said. "It's nice to feel appreciated in the Northland." "A lot of people don't walk around and actually view everything," said Semler about the St. Louis County Fair. "There's a lot of different little niches." There is indeed plenty to see at the fair. It took me several hours just to visit every exhibit and try a couple food vendors. My favorite treat was at Cappy's, where employee Sophia Gleason whipped up a generous bowl of s'mores-flavored shaved ice. Now, if that flavor isn't to your taste, fear not. The stand has dozens of choices. "People are going to come back to try the different options," said Caponoli, who was inspired by shaved ice sellers in Hawaii. "It took a while for people to finally get through their head that this is different than the snow cones." As I made my way through the exhibits, I enjoyed spotting details like the 4-H poster by 6-year-old Ole Cutterly, tracing the timeline of a robin's life with handwritten labels that included looking, I see eggs, hatched, growing, growing, still growing, and gone. Then there was the male duck being sequestered from a group of females. "I'm in jerk jail," read his North St. Louis County 4-H label. "My breed is Golden Jerk 300. I am a jerk, and I am 3 months old. My color is jerk face. My class is turd bird. My favorite thing to do is pick on my ladies." Inflation has hit the fair, inevitably. On a hand-painted sign advertising ice-cold pop from Schwilbe's Concessions, a black marker had been used to change a $1 into $2. Still, even the current price was less than I paid for a bottle of the same size at a convenience store on the drive back to Duluth. Nelson, who runs Mr. Ed's farm in Hibbing, is now in his retirement years, but enjoys the fair just as much as he did when he was a boy. "I was just talking with my brother this morning," said Nelson, "and he said, 'Remember when we were kids, you couldn't go to the fair until you got all the oats shocked, because we were still cutting it with the binder and threshing it. The boys would work as quickly as they could. We'd be out there right behind the binder trying to get it shocked so we could go to the fair,'" Nelson said with a chuckle. "It's amazing." That was my visit to the county fair. I'll have more to say about fairs later this summer, but first, next week I'll be back with a column about my visit to the Barbie exhibit, now open at the Duluth Entertainment Convention Center. Until then, I'm Jay Gabler, Duluth News Tribune.